I made a classmate fail one of their classes for my own benefit. When I was in my second year of middle school, 7th grade, I had an elective with this elderly computer teacher, Miss Sani. She often assigned us a lot of homework, and made our entire classes directed toward key placement and immaculate posture techniques. One day, she instructed everyone in my block to turn in the study guide she had assigned to us a few days prior, though I hadn't the faintest idea what she was talking about. When I had started to dig for it in my backpack, though, I pulled out a crumpled piece of paper, filled to the brim with unanswered questions. I had begun to freak out. Due to a recent test I had managed to forget to study for, and flunk, my grades were already less than perfect. I was, needless to say, horrible with computers. The one thing I was good at, though, was cheating. First, I went over to Ms. Sani's desk, with all the other students, and placed my, unfinished, study guide face down on the slow pile forming on her desk. Then, I made it halfway back to my desk before signaling an O, and walked back to the table, slipping a random paper from the middle of the pile into my hand. I made a slight mention of forgot to sign my name as I quickly placed the, finished, paper down on my desk, using a pencil of mine to erase the already written name, one of my classmates, from the top corner of the page. Then, to prevent the name from showing whatsoever, I quickly printed a solid, rectangular box over the erased corner, then erased that, so all that was visible was a light gray pencil box. Over said box, I wrote my name, then slipped the paper near the top of Ms. Sani's pile, as to ensure that the kid who had actually completed the study guide didn't happen to see their paper with my name on it. Then, I headed back to my desk and continued with the rest of the class. The 100 greatly increased my grade, but you could not even begin to imagine the guilt I felt when as I watched my classmate gasp at their 0 as they were called to the front of the room to identify my paper, which didn't have any sort of a name on it. Eventually, we changed electives again, and I no longer had Ms. Sani. Oddly enough, though, I didn't see my classmate whose paper had gifted me a 100. And, so, out of confusion, I asked one of the kids from that old class, and the current one, where said kid was. They'd failed the class by 1 point and were then currently being forced to repeat the class, which resulted in them having to attend summer school because failing Miss Sani's class had resulted in them missing an entire stretch of electives. The horrible guilt I so righteously deserved still visits every once in a while.